It is not just Absa Kenya that is tapping into the power of mobile to drive inclusion, but Vodacom has also been on top of the business. In this conversation with Stephen Chege, the Chief External Affairs Officer at Vodacom, shares insights into what role leaders can do to drive inclusion.
Africa is doing well in terms of being well represented in terms of connectivity and pushing the digital agenda. However, there are a number of things that we could do better. From the offset, I want to start out by saying that our policymakers and our regulators are doing a great job. But if you look at certain areas, we could do better and increase that capacity. At the moment, Africa's potential in this space is valued at $115 billion. It is projected that this will go up to over $700 billion by 2050. But we need to take certain concrete steps to position Africa well to be able to get that dividend. The areas which we need to be careful about is making sure that every person who should be covered in Africa actually has a connection. 60% of us in Africa access the mobile internet, the internet through mobile phones. That's our first touch point. And unfortunately, we have a large proportion of our continent still not covered at all. 210 million people don't have any form of coverage. And this speaks to that challenge about Africa positioning itself well in the digital space. Most of the coverage, as I've pointed out, and access to the internet is provided by mobile service providers like Vodacom. And what would help us be able to roll out services to customers and ensure that all of Africa is covered is a number of things, first of which is a good regulatory environment. Our policymakers, as I've said, have done a good job, but more can be done. If you look at that space, there are quite a number of sector-specific taxes that impact the mobile industry. Because of those, getting the service out to the customers is impacted. And again, it comes to them at a cost. Certain countries actually place taxes on mobile devices, which means that it is harder for people to access these devices and therefore harder to play their role in the internet space. So these are things that we need to look at and ensure that they're streamlined so that we are not creating barriers that prevent our people from taking part in that agenda. The other thing that we need to look out for is rural coverage. As I've pointed out, a large proportion of our people are not covered at all. And the constraints are there. And we need to ask ourselves the question whether these universal services funds that are created by almost every other regulator, whether they're really working. Mobile operators pay a certain percentage of their revenues to these funds. And ideally, the funds should be able to help to cover and roll out services. But it's been years we've been observing, and this is simply not happening. So we need to rethink how that space can be addressed. Rural coverage will mean bringing more people into access and therefore opening up the opportunity for them to participate in mobile and communication. These are some of the steps that we need to consider and take seriously. The last one I'd mention is very specific on devices. Devices remain a big barrier for people to access normal services as well as the internet. Our countries need to have a holistic view of ensuring that customers can actually get the device that they need to be able to play in the broadband space. Most of the mobile networks are now operating at 4G level. But you'll see that quite a number of our customers still hold on to 2G mobile phones. And we need to take a critical view about this, 2G and 3G, and make sure that we can actually start migrating our customers to a 4G standard and in time to 5G. And this means that policymakers must look at the whole device ecosystem, the taxes that are placed on them, the difficulty that is there to replace a handset for a common woman or man, and make this less burdensome to ensure that our people are more connected.